Rotimi Fashakin joins us now. He's an APC leader to focus and shed some light from his perspective on this fight against corruption. Thank you for coming on this morning, and good to see you again.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you.
And good morning, viewers.
Well, speaking about the fight against corruption, everybody's looking at what's going on, but seeing things and interpreting them differently. Where would you say we are in this fight against corruption?
For me, I want to believe that this is one of the times, the first, very rare occasions that you see Nigerian nation taking the fight against corruption very seriously beyond the mundane level. You know, we've always pontificated it, and it had always stopped at that. But this is the first time that corruption, the fight against corruption, has been leadership-centered, and quite rightly so. When you understand the kind of leader that is on the saddle, he won the election on the mantra of anti-corruption, fight. Corruption, as it were, is as old as the independent Nigerian state. Just about 6 years after Nigeria became an independent nation, about 1996, okay, exactly, today is June 14, 9th of June 1415, there was a first coup in Nigeria, January 1966. And part of the grouse of the coupists at that time was that was about the 10 percenters. You remember the coup speech of Major Nzogu, that the 10 percenters, of the Nigerian state. So from 10%, it moved to 30%. And maybe sometimes even almost the whole thing, because, when money is voted for a project and not a single project. Many projects were implemented on paper, but in reality, no. So you say to yourself that it moved to 100%, from 10% to 100%. So corruption is, the scourge of corruption on our nation is humongous, And so, so when you see this desperate tactics, being employed at fighting it, you need to understand clearly, where this administration is coming from.
So you say that this is about the first time we're taking it beyond the mundane level.
Absolutely.
What are we doing differently now that we didn't do before?
Well, it was Colin Powell, the former chief, Joint Chief of Staff of the U.S. Armed Forces, who once said that processes, systems may fail, but at the end of the day, everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is key to any endeavor, to any human endeavor. Leadership is key. So you look at the man Muhammadu Buhari as a person. Maybe I should tell you this story, so it will help to illustrate. Anecdotal illustrations are sometimes better, help us to convey, the message. While he was in the military, as military head of state, and that was exactly why he was overthrown. In the life of that administration, a military governor, a naval officer in one of the south states, what we now call south states, was was known to have embezzled some money. So, and I think what he did was he awarded contract without recourse to his the Executive Council. So the then head of state, General Muhammadu Buhari, called the Chief of Naval Staff and said that, didn't we tell you people, you service chiefs, to give us clean officers? You know, and how come that this came? That was in his words. I mean, I'm just reporting him. You know, that was what he told us. Didn't we tell you service chiefs, to give us clean officers? Why is it that that this one has, misbehaved like this? Okay, that officer was retired. That military government was relieved of his appointment, and the officer retired. Sometime later, another officer of what you might call of the Hausa Fulani stock, this time an army officer, was reported to have collected some money, 1 million naira, from the politicians that they, booted out of office in 100,000 naira checks. He had cashed 9 of the checks, remaining just 1, when the report came. It was the head of state himself, General Muhammadu Buhari, who brought a memo to the Army Council that if we told this person, if we told this person to leave the military on account of this, these two must also leave. This one also must leave. And that officer happened to come from the Hausa Fulani stock, from the north also. So you will understand that the fight, until the fight becomes leadership-centered, that starts from the leadership. You cannot, Murtala Muhammad, for the 6 months that he was there, Nigerians knew the impact.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you
No
at this
problem.
point. 2 points you've raised just now, and not to take anything away from the person of President Muhammadu Buhari. Just wondering though, you say that this is the first time. What would you say that Nuhu Ribadu did? Or what was done under the Obasanjo regime with Nuhu Ribadu's EFCC?
Well, for a time, I was a fan of Nuhu Ribadu for the fact that he attempted to raise the level, to raise our consciousness to the scourge of corruption.
For a time. In other words, you're no longer his fan?
Well, I was his fan for a time, to tell you the truth. On the social media and all those things. I show you that, look, see. But let's leave that. But what I would say clearly is
because
that
some people would
Nigerians will tell you that at that time, the scourge, the fight against corruption was prosecuted, was done in a way to help the government decimate its enemies.
So it was selective. That was the criticism.
So to a large extent, that was the perception.
Okay.
Let me say that was the perception.
Sorry to interrupt you. The perception doesn't seem to have changed, because that would seem to be the criticism also in this particular fight against corruption. I recall that in your opening statement, you said something about that's why you will see that maybe that's why we're employing desperate measures. Some people say the manner in which President Muhammadu Buhari fought corruption when he was military head of state, nothing has changed from the manner that the current EFCC is fighting corruption now. Do you agree with that?
You will understand that there are 2 dispensations here. The military dispensation, where there was a modicum of authoritarianism, and then this particular dispensation, which is the dispensation of constitutional democracy. In a democracy, there is separation of powers. The organs of government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary are meant to, work in synergy, in ensuring that we live, a good and conducive, polity, that we have a good and conducive polity. But, you'll find that one of the problems of Nigeria is the judiciary that we have, and that is why when I talked about desperate measures, what we have presently, we should, as Nigerians, ask for emergency.
Why is the judiciary a
The
problem?
judiciary. The judiciary is a problem. You as a Nigerian shouldn't be proud that James Ibori was arraigned on, a maybe 134 count charge on corruption. I was absolved, discharged, and acquitted, on all the charges, only for him to step out of Nigeria and to be, held. He's still incarcerated now. It should make you and I to weep